Alright, hey guys, so this video is going to be going over the muscles of the forearm. And so this video, we're not going to cover too many muscles in this video, but it may be a little longer just comparatively, just because I want to spend a little bit more time making sure we really understand these muscles. And so when we're looking at the muscles of the forearm, one of the first muscles that we're going to kind of point out, just because it's pretty easy to get out the way, is this muscle right here. And this muscle right here, we'll notice it starts, it actually starts up in the brachial region, and then it runs this way into the radial region of the arm. And so we give it the name brachioradialis. So that's our brachioradialis right there. And then right next to it, directly beneath it, and we'll look at a different view of it too in a second here, but I'll go ahead and highlight it in blue. This muscle right here is going to be called our extensor carpi radialis longus. And so again, we'll look at a different view of that. But the green muscle there highlighted is the one I kind of really want to get us familiar with in this image, and that is going to be the brachioradialis. So now we're going to start looking at the actual muscles that are relegated only to the forearm. And there's a little bit of a way I like to sort of describe this to people. So if we think about our forearm as being compartments, we have an anterior compartment and a posterior compartment. And then within each of those compartments, we have essentially, imagine we have 3 muscle bellies in sort of this arrangement right here. So just imagine these are 3 muscle bellies right here. We can, for the sake of this class, imagine that we've got an anterior compartment and a posterior compartment. And remember, anatomical position, that's going to help us dictate which one's the anterior and posterior. So we say all the muscles in the anterior compartment are going to flex the wrist, and then all the muscles in the posterior compartment are going to extend the wrist. And so what we're looking at right now is an image of the posterior compartment of the forearm. So we're just going to go ahead and say that all of those are going to be our wrist extensors. And then we've got 3 ones we kind of care about that we want to be able to identify. And so the first one is going to be this muscle right here, again right next to that brachioradialis there. And that muscle, we can't see all of it in this image, but that muscle is going to be called our extensor carpi radialis longus. And so extensor because it's in the posterior compartment, so it extends the wrist. Carpi because carpals is the bones of the wrist. And then radialis because it's on the radial side. So if radial is our thumb side, this is the radial side. And then if our ulna is on our pinky side, this will be the ulnar side. And then longus just means that there's also a short one too called the brevis, but we don't need to learn about that. So we just care extensor carpi radialis longus. And so if we look at our little drawing here to the left, then we can go ahead and label this as our extensor carpi radialis longus. And that'll be this muscle right here. And we'll kind of go ahead and label it. All right, and now we're going to say we've got another muscle that's going to be we'll call this muscle 2, that's going to be right next to the extensor carpi radialis longus. So where's muscle 2 on our muscle image here? Well, that's going to be this muscle right here. And this muscle is the one that's in the middle. And so we give this one the name, and of course the tendons are going to go that way. We give this one the name extensor digitorum because it's going to extend the digits. And actually, if you look at it, the tendons there will run to the digits as well. So that's our extensor digitorum. And that's going to be muscle 2 there. And so this one's going to be extensor digitorum. All right. And then now we've got our third muscle we care about. And this muscle, we'll say number 3 here, is going to be right here. It's a little bit hard to see on this image, so I apologize. This is just the best I could do, unfortunately. It's going to be all of this muscle right here. And actually, I might go ahead and just make it a different color so we can better differentiate. So I'll make it green here for us. And so this muscle right here is going to be our muscle 3. And so this is going to be called our extensor carpi ulnaris. So just like we had an extensor carpi radialis longus, which was on number 1 there, because it's an extensor, goes to the carpals, and it's on the radial side, we have an extensor carpi ulnaris, because it's an extensor, it goes to the carpals, but this time it's on the ulnar side. So that's our extensor carpi ulnaris. And then, again, highlighted right here, we can see that brachioradialis right there. All right, brachioradialis. And so that's the muscles that we can kind of really see well from the posterior view of the forearm. And now we're going to look at the muscles on the anterior side of the forearm and identify those. And luckily, it pretty much follows the exact same layout. So, sorry, I'm having troubles here. So we've got 1 muscle belly, 2 muscle belly, and then we got a 3rd muscle belly here. And then we just go ahead and identify these, and we'll say, okay, this time this is our radial side, and this time this is our ulnar side, because that's our thumb and that's our pinky. And then we'll notice we've got 1 muscle here, another muscle here, and then another muscle there. And then those are the muscles we're going to identify. We're going to look to now to identify those muscle bellies. So we say, okay, what's muscle number 1? Well, we'll just go ahead and highlight it right here. Muscle number 1, it's on the ulnar side. It's in the anterior compartment, so we know it's a flexor, and it's going to the carpals. So we can call this one flexor carpi ulnaris. And then just like on the reverse side, we'll actually jump to number 3 here. We've got this muscle right here. And again, it's on the anterior side, so it's a flexor. It's going to the carpals, so we can give it the name carpi. And then this time it's on the radial side, so instead we call this one our flexor carpi radialis. So we have flexor carpi radialis as number 3 there, flexor carpi ulnaris as number 1 there, and then we say, okay, what's that muscle there in the middle? So this muscle right here in the middle, we need to identify this one, and this one's going to sort of be analogous to our extensor digitorum. Unfortunately, we don't call it the flexor digitorum. That would be nice, but this one's name is actually going to be palmaris longus. It's going to the palms. The muscle and the tendons are really long, so we give it the name palmaris longus. So that's going to be muscle number 2 there. And so we've got flexor carpi ulnaris on the far left as number 1. Far right, we have flexor carpi radialis, and then in the middle there we have palmaris longus. And there's one more muscle we need to concern ourselves with, and I'll actually go ahead and pull up a different image because that one is covered up, so right here. So again, we're looking at the anterior side now. And so we've got this muscle right here, and it's kind of like a little twisted looking muscle. And I actually like to use that to help me remember it because this is going to be our pronator teres muscle. And the pronator teres does what it says, it pronates the wrist. Well, the wrist pronation is a twisting motion, so I like to imagine that it looks kind of twisting because it's following the motion of wrist pronation. So that right there is called our pronator teres. So, got our pronator teres. We have our brachioradialis, and I'll just go ahead and write that out right here. Brachioradialis. And then we have the muscles of the anterior compartment that we're going to sort of just say it's those 3. It's the extensor carpi radialis longus. Unfortunately, I know it'd be nice if we didn't have to say longus, but we do. Extensor carpi radialis longus, extensor digitorum, and then extensor carpi ulnaris. And then on the anterior side, we've got flexor carpi ulnaris, palmaris longus, and flexor carpi radialis. And so that'll do it for the muscles of the wrist there, and the forearm specifically. And I'll see you guys back in a future video.